If you've been hitting the gym, you may have heard the training principle terms such as supersets and compound sets. However, it may be unclear to you what these training principles are and what benefits you can expect to get when you incorporate them into your training program. Hi, my name is Jay and welcome to channel L214. In today's video, we'll take a look at what these sets mean and what possible benefits you can expect to experience with scientific evidence, of course, and which principle may be better suited for you depending on your fitness goals. A superset is when you pair and do two different exercises back to back without rest for different muscle groups. More specifically, agonist and antagonist muscles like pairing chest and back or biceps and triceps back to back. Technically, training completely different muscle regions like pairing legs and shoulders can be called a superset, but the more correct approach is that supersets are targeted to enhance the pump, the amount of blood flow to the entire area of the muscles being trained, and or they have to have a mechanism effect in stretching and shortening of muscles and fascia, like triceps are getting stretched while biceps are being contracted, vice versa. So ideally, the muscles being worked need to be in the same group or have an opposing mechanism. On the other hand, a compound set, which a large number of people often confuse with superset, is when you do two different exercises back to back without rest for the same muscle, like doing a fly right after bench press, lateral raises right after shoulder press, and so on. But some routines can seem a bit confusing, for example, like pairing a rear delt exercise like fakes pull with front delt exercise like front dumbbell raises. Although technically the two are shoulder exercises, so by terminology definition, it should be classified as compound set. However, depending on how your program is designed, they can be considered as a superset since there's virtually no overlapping working area of the muscle in those two exercises. So one can argue, especially for those who treat rear delt as a back muscle, that pairing rear delt and front delt can be a superset. But this is all just a technicality on defining which terminology seems appropriate though. Much like doing walking lunges and hip abductions back to back, one can argue that it's a compound exercise for the glutes, and one can argue that it's a superset between quads and glutes. So in these situations, it's probably best to differentiate the two training principles by where your routine is aiming to train. Are they the same muscles or are they opposing or different muscles? Both training principles can be very useful techniques to immediately increase the level of intensity, focus, and pace to your training. Additionally, you can undergo a cardio conditioning effect to some degree as your entire training time is stretched out and your heart rate will stay elevated that much longer. And since there is no rest in between two exercises, the most noticeable difference is that the intensity is suddenly increased. And with increased intensity, higher overall caloric expenditure from the training session can be expected. Contrary to popular belief, superset may not necessarily have that much of an important role in hypertrophy. The main benefit of superset is that you can get more training done in shorter amount of time. According to a meta-analysis paper on various resistance training techniques in maximizing hypertrophy, the review concluded that the use of superset may be more time efficient than the traditional approach, and especially useful when time limitations exist in the planning of training sessions. And many other papers that studied the effects of supersets in resistance training still mainly indicate that supersets can be the means to increase total training volume in a given time, where they could be a small component for higher hypertrophic potentials, but evidence for that is still insufficient and require further studies. Now, one can argue that since your heart and nervous system are under higher stress than if you were to do each exercise separately or with rest in between, and this might lead to possible higher muscle gains through some metabolic or hormonal way. By the way, in physiology, we'd call this effect from superset as antagonism effect, but remember, in superset, each muscle still only gets one working set. You're just doing two separate working sets on different muscles. Basically, according to scientific studies, supersets may not necessarily directly contribute to higher hypertrophy, just that you'll be able to perform the same amount of training volume in less time. Much like high-intensity interval training and low-intensity steady-state cardio, I covered this topic a few months ago. One isn't apparently better than the other, it just saves us time. Compound set, on the other hand, may not necessarily get the total amount of training volume in different muscle groups as much as superset. However, it can induce higher metabolic stress on target muscle, which can contribute to potentially higher hypertrophy. Additionally, there are subcategories for compound sets, like pairing two different multi-joint exercises together, or on isolation, then a multi-joint exercise, which is called a pre-exhaust compound set. Or you can multi-joint exercise first and then do an isolation exercise, which is called the post-exhaust compound set. This is all a bit technical approach, but the idea behind compound set is that you're training the same muscle with two different exercises without rest. You can also even tackle strength and endurance of the same muscle simultaneously by performing an exercise to focus on mechanical tension first, and then performing an exercise to focus on metabolic stress. For example, you can do heavy rows for 4 to 6 reps to failure, and then immediately do dumbbell rows for 12 to 15 plus reps. Combinations in compound sets can be endless. There isn't a specific time as to when to utilize superset or compound set. Obviously, when you can implement these principles when you simply wish to increase the intensity of your training, and or when you are under a time crunch and need to train as fast and as much as you can. I usually prescribe supersets for the arms, pairing triceps and biceps together, and for abductors and adductors. Mainly because arms, they can be easily and effectively done on cable, which is my most recommended way for training arms, and abductor/adductor machines are mostly reversible or located next to each other in most gyms. But you can train any opposing body parts together if you wish. For compound sets, the time under tension is stretched out for the same muscle, so it obviously is going to induce higher pumps, which in my opinion is the best when you're having trouble connecting mind-muscle connection to that muscle. Also, any lagging body parts that you wish to improve on may benefit well from compound sets. Keep in mind though, if you start doing supersets or compound sets on all your exercises, your training time may be cut much shorter, but you may also get tired much quickly, so watch and listen how your body is responding and try to add in these principles on your training routine carefully. I think we'll end today's video here. I hope today's video helped on superset and compound sets. Try implementing these to enhance your performance and training progress. Make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. It'll mean so much to me. Always make gains. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.